Right. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this session. It's just so wonderful to be here. I'm really enjoying my time in Zadar so far. So I flew in yesterday from DC. I'm a little bit jet lagged, but we're gonna make it work. So I'll just start by introducing myself. Like you said, my name is Simi Olabisi. I'm a director on the AI Global Black Belts, or in the AI Global Black Belt organization at Microsoft. And what we are is the customer-facing arm of the Azure AI engineering team. So I'm really excited today. I'll talk to you about, or just really take you inside the AI revolution and talk with you about how to build unique Gen AI experiences at scale. And so I'll actually just start with a little bit about my background, or my story, I would say, and how I got here to be with all of you today. And I've worked in the technology industry my entire career. I've had the opportunity to work at companies like Cisco, Google, Amazon, to really just help with their customers and help them innovate with technology, specifically cloud technology, as well as AI technology. In my past life, I was a model. I used to model. I'm the former Miss San Francisco. And I'm originally from Nigeria, and I was born there and grew up in Saudi Arabia and lived in Saudi for about 10 years before moving to the US in high school. And so my educational background is actually in biomedical engineering. And one of my first ventures in the tech world was actually building a solar-powered infant incubator for premature infants in developing countries. And that's because I was born about 3 months premature in Nigeria, and there's a big story there. And the story is that my dad actually arrived late to the hospital, and when he got there, the nurses told him that I wouldn't survive because they didn't have an incubator in the hospital, and that they were going to focus on saving my mom's life, and she was in critical condition. And one of the nurses said she knew there was an incubator at the University of Lagos Hospital, and that she used to work there. And so my dad and her got in a taxi. They were on their way there. They ended up having to actually run the last mile because of traffic. And when she got there, she just started, putting me into the incubator. I actually, like I said, I weighed like 1 kilo at the time, super small. And she started just hooking me up, and the other nurses said, what are you doing? There's a line. You can't just do that. And so my dad tells this story all the time, and he said to them, do you know who I am? I am the dean of the engineering school at the University of Lagos, and the dean of the medical school is a very good friend of mine. And if you touch that baby, I'll make sure you never get a job in this country in your life. And from then on, the nurses there called me professor, and whenever I would cry, they would run and say, oh my God, the professor's crying. And the story basically really inspired me to jump into my first project of building a solar-powered infant incubator. And I built it also because I'm a huge nerd. I love to research things. And I'm super passionate about leveraging technology to change lives. And so I truly believe that AI is the next technology that has the power to change lives and make a significant impact in every industry. And so really excited to talk to you about today. So that being said, I'll kick off today's session really by sharing some lessons on the overall Gen AI trends, or gravity wells of impact. And then what I've prepared for you can be broken down really into 4 sections, but we're going to focus on 3 since we have 30 minutes. So the first piece is going to be innovation. And when it comes to innovation, you got to think about how do you select the best Gen AI models for your use case. And when I say models today, I'm going to always be talking about Gen AI models, not fashion modeling. And, if you're into models and dad jokes, this is probably a good talk for you. The second piece is differentiation. And so as you differentiate your solutions, what data are you activating, and how are you enriching your models? Those are the questions that people are thinking about and the trends that we're seeing. And then the last piece is going to be agility. So when you look at the full AI lifecycle, how are you managing your Gen AI investments over time? And so generative AI is actually obviously now everywhere, even at this conference. It's just transforming industries faster than we imagined, faster than we thought possible. And the ripple effects are really proving to be what I would call a force multiplier across 4 specific areas. And so these are the areas that are trending when we look at our customer base. The first one is automation. The second is personal productivity. The third is customer engagement, and the fourth is products and services. And so since launching Azure OpenAI just last year and recently bringing Azure AI Studio to GA, or general availability, we've actually seen customer success gravitating to these 4 trends, or these 4 wells of impact. And some examples of the notable customers in each of these areas are, like in innovation, we've seen Volvo, Sweco, Unity Gaming really streamlining processes and using Gen AI to deliver almost flawlessly. In productivity, we're seeing custom copilots, just like Microsoft Copilot, but custom copilots in all shapes and sizes. So there's like Siemens on the factory floor, for example, and PwC in professional services. And customer engagements have really just absolutely transformed. So we have companies like H&R Block, CarMax, and the NBA leveraging Gen AI to interact with their customers in higher value ways. And then there's the driving experience inside the Mercedes to research breakthroughs at Unilever. Gen AI is really reimagining products and services as well. So all up, we now have over 60,000 Azure AI customers, up about 60% year over year, and the average spend per customer continues to grow as well. And so within these different gravity wells of impact, automation, productivity, customer engagement, products and services, Azure AI is really unlocking all different kinds of use cases. And with these projects across our customer base, I actually often get more questions about the capabilities than the use cases. And so there are many capabilities that span multiple scenarios, and I have learnings and trending patterns from the past year that I'm going to be sharing today. So throughout the conversation, I'm also going to double-click on actual customer examples across each of these patterns a bit more in depth as well. And so in Microsoft Azure, the true passion is helping customers build really unique solutions. And the uniqueness, right, there's Gen AI everywhere, and how do you differentiate your product? The uniqueness comes from customizing the most innovative models and just grounding them actually in your own data. So scale really comes from having confidence in the system safety, the security, and also being equipped to manage change at the same pace as AI is moving as well. So we're going to talk about some models again, and we're going to dive into the innovation piece. And so there's really no shortage of model innovation. Just last week, we came out with 2 new models in partnership with OpenAI, which can do a lot of more complex tasks. So that's O1 Preview and O1 Mini. And what we do hear from customers is that they really need to compare and have ways to select and optimize throughout their process of development. And so new models keep launching, existing models keep improving, and businesses really need more help staying at the forefront of innovation. And so basically, one model doesn't fit all, right? And depending on the use case, whether that's like performance goals, budget, or flexibility, it's increasingly important to be able to choose the right model in a simpler way. And so with Azure, the innovation here is about our customers having all the tools in front of them to do things that nobody else has done. So today in Azure AI Studio, you can explore the model catalog, right? And that features actually hundreds of foundation and open source models. So it's not just OpenAI. And these are models from all around the world. You could see some on the screen here, like Mistral, the Meta models, NVIDIA, Snowflake as well. And so this is in one single pane of glass or one single UX, businesses can, leverage these tools, and developers can leverage these tools to experiment with any of the models highlighted here. And this actually doesn't even capture everything. There's a lot of them. So whether your priority is multimodality, whether it's low latency, cost effectiveness, the model catalog can really bring you a curated kind of list of innovative models under one roof, right? And as we move into basically like it's just year 2 of Gen AI, choice is not really just enough, right? It's about having like a data-driven approach, continuous approach to models that's really game-changing. And so that's one of the trends that we're definitely seeing with our customers. And as we look at model innovation, a few of the breakthroughs that come through are new modes, new flexibility, new adaptability, and new control. And so with multimodality, for example, we have models like GPT-4o from Azure OpenAI service, and we can build software that understands more of the world around us, right? With the 5.3 family, it's actually really surprising the power of these smaller models that can handle task-based activities, and they're really ideal for specific domains. Then we have multi-agent systems, also known as MAS. And those are really emerging by combining APIs to achieve even more with less effort. And so in Azure, we're offering more and more ways to also finance models, like depending on the scope, the timeline, and the goals of the customer as well. So Azure AI customers are really innovating with the models that are best for their use case. Some examples of this are WPP, TELUS, Mercedes-Benz, and Mercedes is using GPT-4 Turbo, as well as DALL-E from Azure OpenAI service to take their in-car voice control to the next level. So I'm excited to double-click on Mercedes-Benz and how they're leveraging model innovation with Azure AI. So let's hear from Mercedes-Benz themselves.
Hey, Mercedes.
How can I help?
What's the biggest national park in Washington?
Olympic National Park is the largest national park in Washington.
The Mercedes-Benz user experience of tomorrow will be hyper-personalized. With Hey Mercedes, your car adapts to your habits and anticipates your needs. We retain complete control and ensure data privacy while tapping into large-scale generative AI models. We proved that Mercedes-Benz operating system was able to pilot new features quickly. And now, thanks to the Azure OpenAI services GPT-4 Turbo with Vision, we are scaling and adding powerful APIs.
Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
Can I park here?
You can park here for up to 2 hours.
Azure AI Vision is a key multimodal component. Pulling data from an array of cameras and sensors, we anonymize the footage on board, can tell you about the world around you.
What is that building in front of me?
The building in front of you is the Mercedes-Benz Research and Development Center in Sunnyvale.
With Azure AI Vision and the multimodal approach, a dash cam can see something and generate a background for the passenger screen. The system is constantly learning to better meet the needs of our drivers and passengers. Hey Mercedes is an AI model that can seamlessly generate high-quality content across text, images, video, and audio all at once.
Set the passenger screen to an image of the Olympic National Park in Washington.
1 moment, please.
The possibilities are super exciting. Mercedes-Benz is paving the way for a more connected and intelligent user experience.
All right. So model selection with Azure AI is really special, right? Because it supports the full AI lifecycle. And when you're prototyping, when you're looking to identify what are your most promising models, you can run performance benchmarks all in one pane of glass. And that allows you to do a lot of testing, iteration, and you can use a lot of different manual tools as well for evaluation. So as you're operationalizing at scale, automated evaluations help you measure kind of like the ongoing quality and safety more broadly, and you can have a unified API and built-in tooling as well for like a more versatile deployment. So let's take a quick look. It's a really short demo of the model catalog that's within Azure AI Studio.
Now, as you might expect, Azure AI Studio is well built for Azure OpenAI applications, but it also has a pretty extensive model catalog. This catalog is of curated models, many of which you can just deploy into an Azure ML runtime. Some of these models are deployable as a service. And so here you can see that there are a set of models curated by Azure AI, like Mistral and Falcon, that I can deploy as a service and use them just as I would the GPT models. Now, how do we help customers decide which model to use? One way is through this benchmarks tab. So here I can choose a task type and I can choose a couple of models to compare, and this list is ever expanding. And I will get a comparison between these two things on a set of standard industry benchmarks.
All right, so I'm curious, how many of you in this room are developers? Can I get like a hand raise? All right, cool. Okay, so let's jump into differentiation. So everyone, kind of the saying is like, we are what we eat, right? And data is really the fuel for Gen AI, right? But activating data is really challenging, and some of you who are developers probably have experience with this. So complexity, for one, is probably one of the things, especially if data sources are more multidimensional and not just structured. And then while models are really evolving quickly, the data is generating even faster. And so that makes it really hard to ensure that you are surfacing the latest information available. And so incorrect or like irrelevant responses, sometimes we call them hallucinations, are under a lot of scrutiny, and that also affects your brand. It has reputational risk as well. And so differentiation to us and to the customers, and one of the key trends is about the grounding and the customization, which really separates like high-performing Gen AI experiences from the others. And so there are many ways to customize your experience, right? There's prompt engineering, there's retrieval augmented generation or RAG, there's fine tuning, and then there's custom models. And so customers actually often find the greatest success by using a combination of the methods, but today I'm going to zoom into RAG as, really like an increasingly essential Gen AI pattern. And so when we simplify like the core aspects of a retrieval system, we can start to relate to the impact of this behind the scenes and see it as kind of like users, orchestration as a user ourselves. And so the quality bar is really high for Gen AI. To move the needle, you need to have accuracy, you need to have relevance, you need to have timeliness, and all of this is expected by the general public, by your employees, by your customers. And so it's ultimately really RAG that's going to expand the model's knowledge over the data, and that's what matters, and ranks answers to deliver responses that people are going to find useful. And so the data relationship plays like a central role in terms of applying RAG effectively. And this is really why data and AI strategies have to stay really close. So over here, we have just like a few of the best examples or best practices our customers are implementing to make the most of Gen AI with RAG. So for example, there's chunking, there's ranking. I think vectorization is really interesting because you can handle like entire chunks of data simultaneously instead of point by point, which I would say is kind of like instead of flipping through one page at a time. And then to keep that analogy going, indexing. Indexing is kind of like filling a library with representations of the data that you want to make available to an experience. And so RAG is really sophisticated, but it doesn't really have to be complicated to get going. And with Azure AI, we've simplified it with a service that we call Azure AI Search. And so some examples of customers leveraging RAG, and that's one of the biggest trends this year, and they're doing it with Azure AI Search. For example, our Vodafone, we have the NBA, we have H&R Block, which is like a tax company in the US. And then last but not least, the one that everybody knows is OpenAI. So why don't we take a quick look at a customer example from OpenAI and understand how they're implementing RAG.
At OpenAI, our mission is to make artificial intelligence both accessible and safe to all of humanity. ChatGPT has been the fastest growing consumer app in all of history with over 100 million weekly active users. Our API is trusted by over 2 million developers worldwide.
We launched 2 RAG-powered features. GPTs lets users build custom versions of ChatGPT that have external knowledge. Over 3 million GPTs have been built on the platform. That's a significant amount of retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, that is happening daily.
The Assistants API lets developers build their own AI-powered assistants to integrate external knowledge using RAG at scale.
To successfully support our massive user base, we need to use the best technology available. That's why we decided to use Azure AI Search and Azure Cosmos DB.
Azure AI Search is more than just a vector database. It is a retrieval system with hybrid search capabilities and support for metadata filtering. Our API users can now upload 500 times the number of files that they could earlier, and that's powered by Azure AI Search.
Azure Cosmos DB auto-scales to meet our capacity needs while being enterprise-grade in feature set and security.
The Azure stack has been very reliable and has worked really well to support our scale needs thus far. OpenAI and Microsoft both deeply believe in responsible AI. With Azure and our tools, we can solve some of the biggest problems of today and tomorrow.
All right. So I guess basically we've seen the trend with ChatGPT, with OpenAI, and I think the summary of that one is that if you want to kind of go from rags to riches, like the OpenAI team, you can use RAG too. And so RAG is like a really important trend of the year. And I think much of like the last year's Gen AI excitement has been anchored really in the internet, like ChatGPT. It's really about like each organization's specific data that will differentiate you. And so I think if there's one thing you remember today, it's that your data really is your differentiator. And so it doesn't matter if that's like structured data, unstructured data, real-time data, user-generated data, domain-specific, whether it's from like third-party sources or it's from Microsoft sources. You really can meet Azure AI where you are. You can come as you are because Microsoft's data and like all the AI solutions are integrated. And so I would say that data, right? It's we can call it cosmopolitan. It's a digital nomad. It's residing everywhere. And so that's a really important kind of piece of leveraging Azure AI to do RAG. So I think in summary, or to summarize, this section on differentiation, with Azure AI, you really can like ground Gen AI experiences to RAG with like any data type from any source. So Azure AI Search is also an out-of-the-box solution because it has re-ranking and indexing capabilities as part of the service as well. So why don't let's go full circle, and that brings us to agility, the agility trend, and operationalizing AI. So basically, operations is super critical in terms of everything we discussed today. So it applies to selecting your models, grounding and augmenting, protecting your systems, and that's really because it's like more of a human-centered practice versus like any single product. So going back to the innovation piece, communications right across teams for model selection and like ongoing changes is really a challenge. And we were talking earlier today about, is AI going to replace developers or is it enhancing the developer experience? And so when we talk about differentiating Gen AI with your data, what we didn't cover is like how like taxing the actual data preparation can be. And I think even with like robust safeguards in place, with all of these things, the evolving landscape really kind of puts a lot of pressure on different teams for different aspects of AI. So in the end, really, it's all about the people, and it's actually all about the developers. And I don't see AI replacing the developers. So to operationalize is really to think about development a little bit more organically and as an interconnected loop or a continuous loop, and it can't really be done without a focus on collaboration, and that's collaboration between people. So in Gen AI, it's like not only AI developers driving the work, they need to collaborate with the data engineers to fuel a pipeline. They have to collaborate with the app developers to deliver the experience. They have to collaborate with IT as well to reach their business goals. And so when all of these things come together, that's what we call LLM ops, or large language model operations. And that's when that's achieved. And so with all of the right tools, teams can come together and really start to manage the full life cycle of AI experiences. And so LLM ops is another major trend of the year. And it starts with discovering the right models, with customizing them, with monitoring them, but I think most importantly, the cycle repeats so the business can keep improving quickly. And so I think programming before AI was rigid, it was more deterministic, but LLM ops have really kind of revolutionized the way that we build software through both probability and more so adaptability as well. So LLM ops today is a super well-established practice, but the same logic, I think, can also be applied to small models and multimodal models beyond just language alone. So on Azure AI, we have customers that practice LLM ops, and they're really realizing a lot of new efficiencies, new ways of working. So some of these examples are Perplexity AI, we have Siemens, and then last but not least is Sweco. And so they built an internal chat experience to help their architects, and they're able to kind of continue adapting that as well. So let's hear from Sweco on how they're empowering their architects and engineers with time-saving AI systems that they've also built, leveraging Azure AI Studio.
We're trying in a sustainable and innovative way to develop the cities of the future.
Do we have sound on this one?
We have a strong focus on digitalization and transforming the urban environment with our clients.
We are addressing the challenges that we see in our cities. Sweco is Europe's leading architecture and engineering company. Sweco has had an input into developing everything we see in our society: hospitals, energy, transportation, infrastructure.
For example, I work with the municipality of Amsterdam. We are the partner for them to solve heat stress, waste management, crowd management, and also water management. The projects have a lot of requirements, a lot of citizens with their own opinion about the developments. We need to make an analysis, which takes a lot of time.
The challenge is making that information usable.
Our consultants, they create documents, CAD designs, etc. Our focus is on automating repetitive and mundane tasks so that they have more time to focus on the customers.
We knew AI was our next step, to automate more processes and to analyze information. We wanted a service within Sweco to help our work.
Azure AI Studio and Azure in general gives us tools to do that task. We use AI Studio because of one-click deployment of the models. It gives you a lot of ease to develop very fast.
And that very first day, Shah was able to develop a proof of concept to show me how a Sweco GPT could look, how it would work, and how it would impact our business.
It took me 2 days to build the whole logic of Sweco GPT in prompt flow. In 2 weeks, we built the whole Sweco GPT and we deployed it. We were thrilled to see every colleague use Sweco GPT in their daily work.
Sweco GPT is my personal assistant. It can save me up to 2 hours a day, which allows me to be creative and innovative and push the solutions that we are creating for our customers to the next level.
In less than 1 year, we've gone from an organisation that didn't use generative AI to an organisation that uses generative AI every day.
The potential of Azure AI Studio for us and what we can do with it for our customers is infinite.
All right, so we talked a lot about the Gen AI experiences today, but I think this section is more about the developer experience. And so, from our perspective, it's really the developers who are making the magic happen. When they have the tools to stay in their flow, they deliver the best work. So our Dev Hub, which is Azure AI Studio for Gen AI, makes integration or the integration process really seamless for familiar open source tools and frameworks, things like semantic kernel, LangChain, AutoGen, for example. And through every stage of the LLM ops process, Azure AI Studio has what professional developers need, and Azure AI Prompt Flow, which we didn't show today, makes the process a little bit more intuitive for all the skill sets. And so I think what's special about Azure AI for developers specifically is the tight integration with things like VS Code and GitHub Actions, which are, across like the holistic Microsoft toolchain. So before we wrap up today, I know we're almost at time. I have a couple bonus slides that I want to share with you, and sometimes people love to take like photos of these slides. So I think these are really like the top GenAI use cases for Azure OpenAI that we've seen all year across the 4 top business use cases. So the top ones, of course, are increasing productivity, automating the process, improving customer experience, and then building creative content. And so this is more of like an expanded version of the use case slide with a bit more detail and a few more examples. And then I'll give you like a couple sneak peek previews in terms of what Microsoft has coming next, things that will be generally available soon. One of them, from a GenAI standpoint, is our new message analysis for WhatsApp. And that helps you really automate, analyze, and respond to customer questions in multiple different languages. And then also in GA is our video translation service. And so this one is easier to explain in like a super short video.
This is our new video translator. With this, I can translate videos into other languages in my own voice. Maintenant, je peux enfin parler français comme je l'ai toujours voulu. または日本語で何かをささやくこともできます。या मैं हिंदी में चिल्लाकर आपसे बात करूं? This AI is going to bring the world together.
All right. Another interesting use case I think we've seen a lot is intelligent call centers. I won't play the demo for this one, but customers are really using AI language service to like evaluate sentiment on customer calls, extract different information, classify the text, understand also conversational language as well. So when I say sentiment, for example, like our AI call center solution is listening to the call. When a customer calls in, it could tell you maybe at the beginning of the call, the customer was angry. At the end of the call, the customer was appreciative, right? It can collect that kind of data on thousands of calls per day. So AI can understand emotions, can understand how your customers are feeling. And it really makes the customer service process more efficient. It can also answer questions in real time. So if a customer asks a question, the AI will provide the agent with the answer, and the agent can just read that versus putting you on hold and going on to search for that answer. So I
Hello, and
think
thank you for
to
calling
wrap it
Royal
up,
Caribbean Cruise.
we're going to skip that. Microsoft's like passion for developer productivity, I think, is really about empowerment. Azure AI Studio is one of the platforms, right, that we have that kind of meets developers where they are. And so when it comes to building unique Gen AI experiences, we're designing Azure AI Studio to really feel like a home base for developers. And so I think the Azure AI platform covers it all. We've talked about a lot of these things today. So being able to swap models, for example, through a unified API is, really key for optimizing. Then we have like enriching models with the most relevant knowledge. We talked about RAG a little bit. We also have something called prompt shields to, apply different filters to combat any threats, for example. Those are really cool. We have our Microsoft customer copyright commitment as well, where we defend our customers in the case of a lawsuit when they're leveraging our tools. And really just like equipping different developers with the tools or open tools that they need to collaborate and to iterate. So none of these concepts are really stagnant. We have to continuously pivot, adapt. They're fluid, they're ever evolving. And so as Gen AI keeps maturing, so do we. And I think Azure AI is, of course, a strong cloud solution. With Gen AI, we're powering most of the Fortune 500. We're leveraging Microsoft Copilot as well. And I think I'll close with that, inside Microsoft, I think the company has always identified for a long time as like a modernizer company to get to this point. And, one of the beauties of Azure is basically that Microsoft is their own biggest customer. So we continue to innovate at that level because of that reason. And so I'll close there. So thank you all for joining, and have a great time at Shift.